Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DigitalEDU Dialogues podcast. I'm Angela Britcher, and joining me today is Jennifer van Alstyne. Thank you so much for being with me today. Jennifer is the owner of The Academic Designer, and she works one-on-one with college and university faculty to help them build a strong online presence. So thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Angela. I'm delighted to be here.
We are going to talk about a couple of things. We want to talk about why it's important that we faculty have an online presence and how to be authentic when we go about doing this. And so I wanted to start by talking about your journey and how you got into this area, because I think your authenticity really speaks to how you coach those of us that are struggling with a strong online presence, that your authenticity in choosing this area. So tell us a little bit about how you got started with this.
Oh, I appreciate you. Yeah, my name is Jennifer van Alstyne, and I got started in this because I really like faculty. I really like professors, and I think that's kind of always been true. I'm a poet, and so becoming a website designer and communication strategist wasn't always the plan. But I really feel like all of the people that I met along the way really helped influence how close I felt with the people that I came to learn research from, came to really respect, and found that I knew way more about them than the outside world did. And that's kind of by design. I mean, like, faculty profiles are kind of meant for an internal audience, and definitely people outside the universities find them because that's your online presence for many, many faculty. But that often isn't the format that kind of works in terms of making sure that people can understand who you are and what you want them to know about you, especially if your work is reaching beyond the academy and you want to consider those options. But like, people weren't really doing that in the kind of sense that I was hoping for. And so I thought, I need to create this for myself. Like, I need to design something that is really going to support these people that I care about and that the world should care about more too.
And I think that's something that's so attractive about your work is the care that you put into it and helping us share the work that we care about. And since you and I've been talking, I've been thinking about how often I'm asked to provide a bio that is stuck to a certain number of characters or words to fit into a website box, right? My faculty bio, but you can't even fit in what you teach. It's just this, and this. And how if a student sees that, they have no idea about what kind of person you are, what you're passionate about, or what you bring to the classroom and why they are going to really learn and grow in your class. So I think it's a really great service as we think about how to better develop our bios. So talk a little bit more about why it's so important for us, why it's so beneficial for faculty to have a strong online presence.
I think the reason that faculty tend to relate to the most is one you just brought up, students. Being able to find the students that really want to take your classes, that are excited to be in your major, to learn from you in your research lab. These kinds of students, like, they need a little bit more information. They're not necessarily going to hear from their friends if their friends weren't as excited about your class or your subject area as they are themselves. Like, it's actually a really personal decision what we choose to do with our time in college or in graduate school. And sometimes people make the wrong decisions. So if we can provide more information on our end as faculty, as professors, as researchers about what we want people to know, what we're already doing in our teaching or in our research or in the kind of work that we do with the community, I think that that's something that can be really, it's more of an invitation. And so connecting with students, staying connected with students, even years or very long after they have left your university, that makes a lasting difference for people. Also, all the senior academics that I work with, they think so warmly about the research and the work that's being done by people that they supported along the way. Mm-hmm. And I think that when professors sometimes aren't able to have a method to keep in touch with students, like, that can actually be, it can be kind of sad. It can make it harder to reconnect later on if that's something that you dream about. And I've also worked with, like, a retired academic who actually creating his website was what reconnected him with many of his students, some of which, I mean, this is like a longtime retired academic, some of which were so excited to hear from their mentor that they wrote in beautiful testimonials about the work that they're doing now and how it's really impacted by the foundation that he helped create. I think that kind of legacy is something that professors don't always think about. But that retired professor's website, it was actually something that was paid for by his children. His children were the people who wanted this. They were both like adult medical doctors wanting to celebrate the amazing impact that their dad made. I mean, like, do you think that your children would dream about something like that for you in the future, or the mentees that you've worked with? I think sometimes it feels self-promotional, and that can stop professors from like considering these other things. That your online presence is really about connecting with other people, and that can be other researchers in your field. It might be community partners who really need to hear about the research that you're doing and how it impacts the work they're doing on the ground. There's so many options for your online presence, but it's oftentimes it's about other people and how we connect with them.
And I think that's where the authenticity comes in, right? That's so often it's one of the things that you and I talked about was, right, we need to have that professional presence because that's the bio that's going to get copied into a conference program, or that's what shows up in the Google search. But one thing that you had said to me that I thought was so important was that it lives forever. And it needs to reflect your values. And we can often forget about them as well, right? Like I've got a bio on some school website, but I've completely forgotten about it. And so I think something that you focus on that I think is so important to us as faculty is that our humanity comes through and who we are as people. And you're such a good example with that, Professor. It's the reason I encourage my teenage daughter to write thank you notes to teachers after a challenging assignment or at the end of the school year, right? Because it's those notes, those thank yous that let you know they learned.
Right.
Wow, now go do something. And so seeing how that can work with our online presence and a different tool to connect, I think is so important and makes it feel like it's not promotional. It is about our audience. It's about the people that we can impact and help, whether it's with our research or the way that we've worked with them. And talk a little bit about how you have seen this work across fields. So this is not just a touchy-feely humanities thing. I say that as a humanities person. Talk about how you see this again across industries and fields.
Yeah, so I started the Academic Designer and my blog, The Social Academic, really resources to help professors with their online presence back in 2018. And I thought I was going to be working mostly with people in English, maybe history, other humanities fields, maybe the arts because I have a history in art and music. But I also was scared about how I could support, all of these other people who also need an online presence. I was like, oh, there's science communicators out there that can support those people. But the truth is, online presence isn't as much about communicating your research or your science as it is about communicating yourself and how you fit into that larger ecosystem of creating change in the world, whether that's through your teaching, your research, or community work. There are so many ways that faculty touch the world, and it doesn't look the same for everyone. And it honestly, I recognize that no matter what field people were in, the conversations that we were having really created opportunity. It created opportunity for them to have further connections in the areas that they wanted and to engage with people, even when they weren't going to, like, if you're not there at the table or at your poster or at your talk to hand out information or to get people to the next step. What can we do with the online space in order to facilitate that 24/7, even when you're sleeping? There's options for you, whether it's through your website or your social media, or again, having a stronger bio that's going to bring people back to whatever connection you want. We can help prompt that. We can help invite that. But I think that in terms of fields, the same fears for professors exists, whether you're in science, social science, humanities, the arts, any field. I think there's people who really feel like, I am scared to do this myself, or I'm scared to do this at all because I'm thinking about how people are gonna judge me, or how, maybe this website looks too designed, or maybe it looks like I did a really bad job and I don't look professional. All of these fears that come up, it's like, it doesn't matter whether you're in engineering or biomedical sciences. If you want to help people, you probably want to be more intentional about how people are engaging with you online. And that can also create fear and anxiety because you're used to doing things well and you're used to being really good at what you do. And so thinking about this new area that's like, oh my goodness, like I have to be online and do all of this like here too. It can be overwhelming for people who are already oftentimes at capacity because you're really good at prioritizing your time as a faculty member. So how can we fit in this thing that actually in the long run makes your life easier and creates more opportunities for aligned things that are with your values, with the research goals that you have, like great for your students. I want you to have those things, but also with ease.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want it to be hard. I never tell people you have to be on social media or you have to have a website. There's options.
And I appreciate that especially people in different fields may feel like, oh, it's overwhelming to think about the communication aspect. But even as a person who works in communication and teaches communication, I get overwhelmed. Right? With the idea, when do I have time to make a website? And I should just have my students do it, because it's really hard to promote yourself.
Exactly.
And it's really hard to think about, how do I want this presence to look and be, and to remind even myself, like, oh, I just need to be myself, because in my case, often my audience is my students and they know me as a real person. But yes, again, even as a communications person who teaches people how to do this, it can feel challenging. And with that in mind, share how you work with people and how you do this one-on-one work, and why it's so important to do the work of thinking about planning and designing your social and your online presence.
The first few years that I had my company, I actually had online courses where I was helping people, create their websites on their own time, their own schedule. And I also worked with people one-on-one to design websites. But I really found that the people who were doing it themselves, I wanted all those resources to just be like publicly available. Like, if you're going to do the work yourself, I don't want to have to be there to support you if I can support way more people by making it online. So I closed down my courses, and I ended up putting way more resources like articles and interviews on the Social Academic blog, because I really want to empower academics to be able to do these things themselves. That kind of shift for me was because working deeply, more introspectively with professors made such a meaningful difference. If I was going to dedicate my time to really getting into in-depth interviews to ensure that the websites that we were creating for professors were going to last them, not just like a few years, but it was going to grow with them over time through their career, and that they already had pages and like plans ready to go for when to consider new spaces. That is the kind of deep work that like really sparks my brain. And it also really is time that professors tend not to create for themselves. So when I changed my services, it was really to help more people. And that seems kind of counterintuitive because I'm like working with fewer people. I know, but it also means that I have opportunity to create more that's going to empower people to do it themselves. That's why I have the Best Personal Academic Websites contest, where we celebrate the best websites that people have created, whether you've worked with another website designer, you've done it yourself, your students helped create it for you. We celebrate research lab websites, personal academic websites, because when we see each other take up that space online, it makes such a meaningful difference. And this isn't about like seeing everyone do it. It's oftentimes about seeing your mentor do it, your colleague do it, your friend, having space and having that space be meaningful to them. I think that can make such a difference. And I never want to gatekeep that experience for anyone. I know that faculty deserve space online, even if they don't feel that way themselves. And so when I think about the introspection, we can create that space for yourself as well. Like, you don't have to work with me to be more introspective about the online presence that you want for yourself. Asking yourself questions like, who do I want to connect with? And once we're connected, like, how do I want them to engage with what I've created? Or am I hoping for long-term collaborators in a specific area? These kinds of questions can really help inform how we're spending our time and energy. So where it's not just like, okay, yeah, I'm doing social media because I've been told to do social media. I'm putting out my posts. If those posts aren't really reflective of the goals that you want to create for yourself or for your students, maybe it's not quite aligned with how you're spending your time. And so I think that that introspective time for our online presence, you can give that to yourself. Or if you don't want to do any of the stuff yourself, you can also work with me. And I really think that questions, oftentimes when I ask and people are like, oh, that's a really good question. Sometimes when that happens, they say, I was just having this conversation with a friend. I was just having this conversation in, a faculty kind of council meeting where we were talking about professional development because we're all kind of struggling with this one question about where do we go next with our research or our service or our leadership. That question may be something you've already considered for yourself, but haven't given yourself time to think about in the context of online, of how we make decisions, of how we spend our time online. And so I think that that's something that I would love for you to create with yourself or with a friend. And I love that that can really inform how people can engage with us long-term online.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you use the word alignment. And thinking about when, again, as a communications person, when we are aligned with our audience, it makes it really easy to communicate. We know what they need from us, and we know the medium that they need to receive it in, so they can understand and interpret and engage with that information. And when we're in alignment with that audience and the message, I think then it doesn't feel so hard and doesn't feel so awkward and doesn't feel so self-promotional, because I'm talking to my people. And I think that's where social media as a professional can start to feel uncomfortable, is, oh, well, I'm supposed to do it this way, or I'm supposed to create a post that looks like this, or I'm supposed to post on this particular platform, without any idea about who the audience is. So I appreciate that your work calls people into that alignment with who they are and who their audience is and how they're going to connect and engage with one another. I also really appreciate the idea that you help create structured time for people to think about it. Again, not just as faculty, but so many of us at work, we're out of time. Right? We don't have a lot of time to think about this. We're doing our jobs, we're engaged in our communities, we're parenting, we're doing all of the things that we do. And so it almost feels selfish to say, I'm going to take a little time and think about how I want to connect with my audience, with my people in this way. And so I like that idea that you help people create that structured time to do some thinking and to answer those questions and to help them think about questions that maybe they hadn't thought of when it comes to developing that alignment and how they want to share their work. So when you think about people getting started, and one of the things that I know you talked about, you work on website, social, that we've got so many options that can feel really overwhelming as well. And so when someone's just getting started, what are the kinds of things that you talk to them about?
That's a good question. When someone's just getting started, I'm often talking with them about their research goals, how they engage with their students. I'm asking them questions about their life and like their actual life and how they spend their week, because that really helps inform what they might be open to and what really isn't going to work for them. I've had a lot of people come to me for personal academic websites, for instance, who absolutely don't want to touch social media. But once we get into the conversation, oh, well, I don't want to post on social media, but actually I am open to having a LinkedIn profile and to getting connected. Like, I will connect with people. I'll have the profile. I'm probably not going to post. And that's great. And then once the profile is created and like I've done it all for them, so they didn't have to do it themselves, but they come to the point where they're like, oh, well, okay, I am actually open to an introduction post. And so I think that reevaluating our comfort levels, reevaluating our goals, that's something that kind of has to happen over time. That's one of the things that I like when I get to work with someone one-on-one, is that I'm there for that process over time. When you're doing it yourself, you've probably, like when I just said, create time for questions if you're able to, or even with a friend, like that's great. But I want you to maybe continue that process and not just do it once, but consider creating a little bit of space for yourself every once in a while to just check in. Because even I noticed that I was actually out of alignment with my online presence goals. And I think about this all the time. And so I think that oftentimes we don't quite create space for ourselves when something's already working or when something's going well. Like a lot of people who just post on social media who are already maybe connected, like they're going to get likes and engagement, and they're going to get a good response to what they share potentially. And then they're like, did that actually align with my goals? I mean, people liked it, but was this the thing about my students that I wanted to celebrate? Or was this like the kind of obligatory post about my research that someone told me I had to share? And I liked sharing it. I wasn't against it, but like, this is the other thing that really is what I care about and wanted to put out into the world today. And I'm not saying it has to be either or, but sometimes we're doing something because we think we should, or we feel like we need to, when actually we want to do something else. And that's okay as an academic to make that decision. And you have agency in that process. And it's helpful when we check in with ourselves over time.
And I appreciate that idea of a process, that we don't meet with you, or we don't fill out this worksheet or checklist and say, these are my goals. Okay, well, if this is my goal, how many times I've seen this in social media workshops and people will even come to me like, what about this? And it's, okay, well, if you want to achieve this goal, then you must post this many times a week. And you must do this and do it at this time of day. And instead to allow there to be a process. And a process of growing on comfort, as well as kind of just figuring things out. How am I reaching my people, and what's engaging, what feels in alignment with my goals, instead of having it all figured out after a meeting to say, we're going to allow this to grow and evolve. I like to tell people it's really hard to break social media. And so, we can try it. And if it doesn't work or it doesn't feel right, we try something else, right? I mean, there are ways to break it, but for the most part, when you're a professional, you're not doing that. So I like that idea of it's not once and done. It's an evolution and a process in how we are engaging online, and how that can continue to evolve. I think even as we maybe as we change the positions that we're working in, or are doing new research, working with new people, collaborating differently, there might be different types of information we want to share or engage with in different ways. So, Jennifer, any final thoughts that you want to share with us today?
Yeah, one final thought that I would love to share is that this is something that we think about in terms of online, but oftentimes it's really supporting our life in person. And so being open to talking about your online presence in person is the thing that I've found most supportive in terms of networking and getting connected with people that you're meeting in deeper ways. You can invite them back to your website or to your LinkedIn profile, another area of your online presence, just by mentioning it during your talk or when you're at a meeting. And I just think that actually voicing that out loud, that can make such a difference for people. And one of my professor clients, she's a PI, and she actually has been sharing this with people like in private meetings because she's so excited about her new websites. And she said that the delight that they get on their face when they check out her website is really beautiful. And she is so excited that she created that time for herself to get this out into the world, because she never would have had these deep engagements about what she does in person, that I had never expected that kind of openness about having your own website, because sometimes people are like, oh, you want me to add it to my email signature? And I'm like, yes, please do. So when someone is like, oh yeah, and I tell people about it, and I love telling people about it, I'm surprised, but I'm also so happy, because that means that more people can see the delight that you get when you create space that feels like you, that looks like you, that represents what you want people to know about you. And I think that's something that oftentimes we let other people do for us, but you do have agency in creating that for yourself if it's something that you want. It's also okay if you don't want to be intentional about it right now too.
Jennifer, thank you so much. I feel empowered, and I feel like you have just empowered our audience to get started having these conversations and to start thinking about their online presence. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Angela. It's been wonderful to be on this podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by Professor Services. Looking for a job in teaching? Need to expand your network? Want to boost your income? Whatever it is, the expert team at Professor Services has you covered. From helping higher ed faculty find new jobs, to essential tools such as cover letters and CVs, to applying to jobs for you, Professor Services equips you to nail your job search. Don't stress over the job hunt. Maximize your potential and crush your next opportunity with support from our team of experienced administrators, mentors, and educators. Discover how the team at Professor Services can help. Visit professorservices.com today to get started and